Have you noticed in the personal development industry that there has been a huge push, especially towards men, about being the best? You got to be the strongest. You got to push to be the best. You got to be the fastest. You got to be the strongest. You got to be the most financially secure. You have to be the best. Women women's personal development tends to focus more on emotion and recognizing boundaries and not being pushed over, but men, you have to be the best at everything. But what effects is this message actually having on men, and is it really centered around the proper values? What's up, guys, and welcome to the Men's Empowerment Network podcast. I am Joshua Abel, and this has been my entire life, living by the mentality of grandiosity, of chasing fame, fortune, power, prestige, money, beautiful people, everything in life. I remember when I was younger and I had a room to myself in the basement. It was awesome. It was my own little man cave down in the basement. And I had envisioned in my head that I was going to be a world famous actor. I was going to be an Academy Award winning star. I would walk the red carpet with all of the celebrities, and I would actually go up on stage and perform my Oscar speech holding that golden statue. And this was the reality that I lived in my head. And then when I actually got to LA and realized how, difficult it was, to actually pursue a career in film, then, my reality totally did not match, the concept that I had in my head. And as men, whether it be from our parents or from, movies or television or magazines or now social media, the internet, we are inundated with the drive to be the best at every single thing you do. And it doesn't matter what you are pursuing. If you are not the best, then you, my friend, are less than a man. When I was in college, I was in a history class. And according to the syllabus, if we were on time and there every single class period and turned in all of our homework, then we wouldn't have to take the final exam. Huge, huge motivation to be there on time every single day and turn in your homework, let me tell you. And at the time, I was taking 22 credit hours. I was working 2 part-time jobs, and I was full-time in theater. And so I was stretched really, really thin. And, I was there every single day on time, had my homework turned in on time until the last week of class. And by that point, the end of the semester, working 2 jobs, doing theater, taking 22 credit hours, I was physically and mentally exhausted. And I woke up late. And when I woke up and I realized what time it was, I was filled with such rage. Like it just exploded out of me and through my fist and into the wall. So I put a huge hole in the drywall because I was late for class, because I was not living up to my expectation of being the best academic, the best student, the best, the best, the best. And it came out of me in this just violent outburst. But that's not the only negative connotation or negative result that this constant strive for being the best has resulted in my life. It is nothing for me to get so incredibly down on myself when I look in the mirror. You know, I want to be the best in the gym. I want to look like a man should look, with ripped abs and good pecs and, you know, good biceps and things like that. And every time I look in the mirror, I am constantly putting myself down. You fat fucking piece of shit. You are good for nothing. What the hell are you doing? Why don't you fucking pick up a barbell instead of, a burrito? Or when I look at my bank account and it's not, hanging in the millions of dollars where I believe that it should be, then, again, I'm right there in the mirror. You are a failure at life. You are a failure because your bank account are not where it should be. You should have, so much money in your bank account, but you don't because you are a failure. You never succeed at anything. No matter what you try, no matter how hard you try, it's not good enough. Push harder, work longer, do more, always. When I look at relationships, and, I was in a committed relationship for nearly 8 years. And when I would look at the life that I had, it wasn't where I pictured it. It wasn't, that beautiful house overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, waking up and going out to the balcony with a nice little latte and having my partner right there who's beautiful and ripped and has a successful job of his own. No, it was nothing like that. And I would compare my reality to this fantasy I had in my head. And ultimately, what did I do? I blew it up. And a lot of that pain, a lot of that rage, a lot of that anger, a lot of that fear, a lot of that frustration, that self-doubt, that self-pity that I shoved down deep, because on the outside, I was all sunshine and rainbows. I was Mr. Optimistic. I was Mr. Happy Personality. But on the inside, I was tied up in knots. I was constantly just churning because my insides sure as fuck didn't match what I was presenting on the outside. And so the only way that I could find, because I was not able to, really express or communicate, how I was feeling at the time, the only outlet that I had, or that I knew that I had, that I chose to have, was the bottle. And I would drown myself in booze just to escape that negative self-talk, that those negative emotions about myself, that negative image that I had of myself, because I wasn't living up to what I deemed as an acceptable man. I buried myself in the bottle until I completely destroyed everything. And, that in itself, I kind of valued, because I knew that if I started at the bottom, the only place to go was up, and so I'd constantly be seeing improvement, maybe slowly, but I would see improvement over and over and over, tenfold over. And, I would get to a point where, life was good. And then I'd start comparing again. Then I would start comparing. Okay, I've got a great job. It pays me really good money. I enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy the people I'm working with. But it's not paying me enough. My bank account still isn't where I think it should be. I'm not getting the respect I feel I deserve over at work. Relationship, it's still not that perfect rom-com type environment. Okay, let's bury down those feelings. Let's shove them down. Let's keep pushing harder, because it's gonna be better. It's got to get better. It's gonna be better. You got to push to be the best. I got to push, 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 push. Drink, 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 drink. Blow it up. Damn. Now I'm back at the bottom. Okay. All right. We can go up. We can go up, because it's going to get better than it is right now, for sure. And so alcoholism became a huge part of my coping mechanism for not living up to the fantastical ideas that I had in my head. And, you know, this all stems from, having the wrong metrics. As men, we're pushed to be financially the best. I'm scrolling through TikTok all of the time. Not all the time, but I'm scrolling through TikTok periodically. And, I'm constantly inundated by messages of make $10,000 a month. Here's how you get rich. You should do these stocks. You need to do this portfolio. You need to do this for a secondary income. Here's how you create passive income. Blah, 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 blah. Inundate, 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 inundate. And that reinforces my idea of what I feel like I should be doing, of where I should be at, based on the metrics that I've given myself for my entire life. I was raised in a household where it was a very, tight income. My dad was living paycheck to paycheck. It was, at home with spaghetti dinners and no vacations. And, there were 6 mouths to feed and, bills to pay and never a new car and, all these things. And based on that environment, based on what I saw from that, I deemed that as being unhappy. And so my metric for being happy was to create a lot of money, an overabundance of money. I had to be rich if I wanted to be happy. And so I had to do that by any means necessary. I also saw, my friends and family who, some of them were overweight. And it was drilled into my head very early on that to be overweight is to be ugly. And I didn't want to be ugly. And so the only way around that was to be in the best physical condition possible. Not possible for me, possible amongst everyone. And so that was the metric I set. And of course, I would, subscribe to all the men's fitness magazines and see these dudes with fucking ripped bodies and then compare myself to them, because that's the metric I set. That was the goal I set. That was perfection physically. I had to push myself in the gym 2-3 hours, limit calories, no carbs, go on crazy binge diets, and, really push and push and push. And every time that fucking scale wouldn't read what I thought it should read, then it was near close to being smashed with a sledgehammer, that motherfucking scale, wrong metric. Wrong metric. And, this has to do with relationships and spirituality, finances, health. Every single aspect of my life was determined and judged by ultimately the wrong metrics that I had set up in my head. And in talking to men over the past several years about, where their life is, where they want to go, how they feel about life, different solutions and strategies and things like that, we would always set up what their metrics were. And I understood it because I had the same metrics. They wanted to create more money. They wanted to create, a perfect relationship. They wanted to, push harder in the gym. And, these metrics aligned with what I believed the metrics in my life should be and that I was striving in order to achieve. And so, I would be able to coach them on how to increase gains in all aspects of their life and things like that. And they just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing, all the while soaking in all of this personal development information, which kept saying, push harder, get up earlier, do your meditation, do your workout, push harder, make that extra phone call, send out that extra email, push harder, push harder, push harder, be the best. And yet, all along, even though I was pushing harder, I kept feeling more and more miserable. I kept looking at myself in the mirror. You're still not there. You're still not there. What progress have you made? You're, you're, you're nowhere. You're only slightly closer to, whatever financial goal you had. You're only slightly closer to, paying off whatever debt you had. You're only slightly closer to, forming that perfect, quote unquote, relationship. I was after money, power, prestige, fame, material goods. I wanted a BMW in my driveway. I wanted a 2-story house on land. I wanted it all. I wanted the material goods so I could be happy, so that I could feel fulfilled, so that I could be the best. And I mentioned the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, which the title is a bit misleading because, right off the bat, he says, you've got to give a fuck about something. But the whole point of the book is minimizing the things that you actually care about and making those few things worthwhile and putting all of your effort into those few things. And of course, the few things that most of us put our effort into, once we achieve them, bring us absolutely no more happiness than we had when we started. And that has been my personal experience for years. I got the great job, lost it, but I had it. I was making the money. I could pay all my bills, go on vacations, buy basically whatever the fuck I wanted. I had it. And I wasn't any more happier than when I was pursuing it. It was that pursuit of it that made me feel like I was actually moving towards something. It was that pursuit. It was always that striving to get that goal that I thought was making me happy. And here's the thing that, it was kind of a reality check to me that I was back home. My mom had just passed away. I'd gone back home while she went into hospice, and I literally watched my mom pass away. But while I was there, I was able to spend dinner with one of my best friends. We've been friends for over 20 years, and we have always had a similar mentality of pushing forward. No one's going to stand in our way. We're going to get what we want because we're going to work hard and we're going to do this shit. And that's what we really respect in each other. We're not satisfied with just floating through life. And we're not satisfied with, just, whatever, just kind of couch surfing in life. We push forward and we achieve our goals. And after dinner, we were at my place and we were just, wrapping up conversation. And she knows my history with alcoholism and my, strive towards the top, my strive to be the best, my strive for perfectionism and things like that. And then she's also witnessed my several demises into the brinks of alcoholism. And she asked me point blank, what if it never happens? What if you never, ever become, a famous whatever you're trying to be, a movie star, actor, podcaster, writer. What if you never, ever reach that level? How are you going to handle that? And at first, I was really actually kind of offended for anyone to even remotely think that that is even a possibility was so far out of my realm of reality that I was really taken aback and a little speechless. And I'm sure I made some sort of witty comeback like, blah, blah, blah. But that question A has never been even presented to me. And B, I had never even entertained that idea of what if, you know, I never do become a, a world famous whatever I'm trying to do at that time. But it's stuck in the back of my head. It's stuck in the back of my head and it just kind of sat there. What if? Are you going to be okay with that? Am I going to be okay with that? Am I going to be okay in being ordinary? Am I going to be okay with, just being happy and pursuing something that I actually enjoy? Am I going to be okay with not reaching elevations of superiority? Am I going to be okay with that? And it's over the past 6 months in this journey of, sobriety and forming connections. And in reading this book, I actually listened to it in an audiobook, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. He talks about being ordinary and how there can actually be joy in being ordinary. And right now, there are over 8 billion people on the planet. How many of them do you think are considered extraordinary? The best in their field? How many men out of that 8 billion do you think are the best? My hunch would say a handful at most, certainly less than 0.01%. The best. Because everything that we do, chances are there's someone better than us. Someone out there can do it just a little bit better. Just a little bit better. And Mark Manson actually gave some really cool examples of this. He was talking about, I think it was the drummer of Megadeth, who when he started his career, he was in a band who was signed to a record deal. And as soon as that record deal was signed, the band decided to, get rid of him. And that band that got rid of him turned out to be Metallica, And so here this drummer was. He got involved in a new band, Megadeth, and he spent his entire life comparing his career to that of what he would have had he been able to stay in Metallica. Metallica sells hundreds of millions of copies of records. Megadeth, maybe a few thousand million, I don't know, significantly less. Metallica has way more fan base, way more notoriety, way more fame, way more money. He still had a successful career. still did what he loved. But in comparing to his metric of beating Metallica, in an interview, he said he has literally never been happy. And so that got me to thinking, you know, if there are more than 8 billion people on the planet and only, 0.01%, if that, are considered the best in what they do, we're kind of in pretty good company. You know, we're kind of in a family of guys who aren't the best. We're just kind of ordinary. And it really got me to thinking and really contemplating, what values I hold really dear in my heart, for years and years and years. It was success, it was power, it was fame, it was money, it was, sex. I utilized sex a lot as, a benchmark, notch on the bedpost. I yeah, it's just what I did. So one of the things that I had to do was I had to really take a step back and analyze what my personal values were. Leading up to about 6 months ago, I created my life based on these metrics that I held dear that weren't making me happy. Even when I would achieve them, I still wasn't experiencing the happiness, the pleasure, the joy, the peace, the serenity in my life that I thought that achieving some of these metrics would give me. And so I really had to take a step back and I had to, take an inventory of what really I held dear and important in my life. And it turns out that what I really felt emotionally as metrics that brought me joy and happiness were not at all what the metrics I was, striving to achieve. They weren't copacetic. They weren't in line with each other. And when I took a step back and I thought about the things that really made me happy, it was personal values of, having a sense of adventure, of being creative, of spending time and building relationships with my family. It was being independent. It was showing kindness to others. It was having a sense of loyalty and honesty. It was being seen as a leader. It was having, a sense of humor and being able to improve every single day. It was being spiritually, mentally, and physically healthy. It was having connection with others and a sense of curiosity about life in general. And when I really defined what those true metrics were that made me happy, and I started shifting my experience, shifting my goals, shifting my actions towards more of an alignment with those values, with those metrics. What am I doing today to be a more honest man? What am I doing today to be creative? What kind of adventure am I going to have today? Am I going to, really try and build a better relationship with my dad, with my sister, with my nieces, with my nephew? What am I going to do to, give myself a sense of, physical, mental, and spiritual health? And once I started shifting my activities to that, to those metrics, suddenly a lot of the stress, a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the depression, a lot of the self doubt, a lot of the anguish that I was putting on myself on a daily basis slowly started to dissipate, slowly started to go away. And I started this new journey about 6 months ago. And, it was strange. It was really, really strange to make that shift. And of course, it wasn't all at once. I had to do a lot of habit stacking to get to the point where I'm at now. But I have literally never had so much serenity, so much peace, and such a sense of fulfillment in life as I do right now. And huh, that may sound ordinary. That that may sound, you know, like nothing special, but I I have a happiness and joy every single day that I never experienced. Because even when I had the job I wanted, or the job that gave me all the money and everything, I was always striving for more. And now when I'm able to accept my circumstances as they are, and right now I've got a shitty job, and if it trust me, it's a shitty job. But I go in there with a smile on my face, knowing it's a shitty job and knowing that it's temporary, it's a job, and it doesn't define me. It pays my bills. That's about it. And I'm certainly, working towards something that's more in alignment with what I want, but under these new values, under the values of creativity, under the value of independence, under the value of, leadership. And when I find that position, when it becomes aligned with the right time in life, then I'll jump on it. But I go into work every day with a smile on my face. That is something that would never have happened had I continued to get into this sociological implied belief that had to continue to strive to be the best if I wanted to be considered a good man. And so, how are you going to define your core values? Ask yourself, what makes you happy in life? I went and visited my sister this morning, and when my two nieces came running up to me, and my nephew came running up to me with their arms wide and a smile on their face, and they yelled out, "Uncle Josh!" That warmed my heart so much. I felt so loved and so appreciated and so welcomed and so invited, and just words can't, I mean, the feeling is indescribable. And that is now a value in my life. So what else makes you happy? My dog makes me happy. My dog makes me really, really happy. So spending time with my dog, I find that to be so rewarding, so peaceful, so nurturing and loving. And what else makes me happy? Being creative, filming this podcast, getting to talk about my experience and, what I'm doing in order to become a better man on a daily basis. And maybe, hopefully, help some other dude do the same thing. Create more peace, create more serenity, create more love, create more joy in his life. And, find the things that make you happy. And what is it exactly about that thing that you do that brings the happiness. And you could probably find a personal value in there. Another thing you might be able to do is look towards your role models. Growing up, my dad was a huge role model for me. This was a man who was committed to his family, regardless of how he felt, regardless of the circumstance or situation. He pulled his ass out of bed at 4 a.m. He dragged his ass to work to put food on the table because he loved us, because he cared for us, because he respected us, because he valued us. His family came first. He was an honorable man, is an honorable man. And he's got a fucking great witty sense of humor. And, I look up to that. I respect that. Those are the characteristics I want in my life. So who are your role models? What characteristics do they have? What values do they have that you can implement into your life? And so accepting being ordinary doesn't mean that you just give up. Doesn't mean that you just quit and couch surf through life forever and ever. It just means shifting your values into something that's more important, something that ultimately you'll be working towards for the rest of your life. And it's that pursuit of those values that you align with that brings the joy, the peace, the serenity, and happiness. Guys, I really hope you got value out of this. If you did, I would love for you guys to share this podcast. I'm slowly getting better on TikTok and other social medias. You can find all those links in the show notes. Email me, hit me up if you got a topic. I'd love to, throw out new topics out there. Make sure to follow this podcast, share it. This podcast is also on YouTube if you want to see my gorgeous face. But my friends, I really do hope that this brought value into your life today. And I really hope that, maybe it helped one of you. So until next time, my friends, cheers.